anybody here that has not been here before? Newcomer? Raise your hand. Okay, welcome. Do we have anybody that hasn't been here in a while? Okay, and a little back there. Good. Glad you're coming back. Get a little by little, more and more and more. I'm Scott. We're going to run this the same way they used to run it. If you have a, we're going to open up with the pledge, and then we're going to open up with prayer, then the pledge, and then when you have questions, please raise your hand. I'll go around and tell you when you're next. Ask questions. Afterwards, we'll have any announcements. But first of all, Len, will you lead us in prayer, sir?
I will. Father, we are so thankful because we have the privilege of living in truly the land of the free, the home of the brave. We're thankful because we can assemble together and to study, to learn, to experience what's happening in your world. There's many things, Father, we really don't even know what to pray for, but we can only pray, Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done, Thy name be glorified in all things. Now give us ears to hear, hearts to understand. Make us conscious of you and what you're doing in our world. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Mark, please, in the pledge, please, sir.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have any announcements? Got one back here. Announcement. Go ahead. Say your first name first.
Okay. My name is Roberta Roberts, and I do tours to Israel. And I have a group going out of Oklahoma City, May 9 through 18. I know that's coming up close, but hey, it is what it is. It's priced $29.95 out of New York. And then we've got some really nice fares to get you from Oklahoma City to New York. So that's what I've got. Would love to have you go. It's a time when the Jews have invited the Christians to come together with them on their Independence Day and thank God for the land and for giving it to them. And I invite you to come and go with me.
Am I speaking to the group?
Any other announcements?
And Avi will probably be speaking to our group
In Israel, yeah.
No other announcements. Good. You got one?
Just real quick, I'm Frank Volpe. I'm running for Congress in the 5th Congressional District. I'll be around afterwards if anybody wants to talk to me or get to know me better. It's not my day today, so...
Say again your name?
Frank Volpe, Volpe, V-O-L-P-E, and I'm running for Congress in the 5th Congressional District against Steve Russell.
Yes, sir.
Joint resolution that was against the, that we hope to get the articles in there to say against the Common Core hook-ins with ACT-Aspire testing. Apparently, there's an inside guy that puts the SJR 75 bill right on Hickman's desk and says, just now put it in. And he's planning on doing that. I just talked to him. So it's not up on the schedule, but they want to push that in. And I really think people ought to be calling and talking and saying, no, we don't want it as is in there because of the Common Core bookends.
What he's talking about is our education bill. I called this morning. Whatever they lock in is going to be locked in for 6 years. Is that right? So they need to get it right.
Yeah, that's right.
Then all this political theater just needs to, just urge them to get it right. That's the part.
Yes, ma'am.
Today they're also trying to sneak in the real ID and pass it. So we've got two things. It's not on the schedule per se, but it's under the schedule. They're doing it sleight of hand, trying to keep us from knowing about it.
Explain what you talked about. Personal ID? Real ID?
Real ID that goes all the way to the UN Agenda 21.
Okay.
Does that have to do with the driver's license? Yes, it does. Yeah.
It's another attack on state sovereignty. So, right, national ID, we don't want that. And it has all your information on a little barcode thing. It's another thing that attacks state sovereignty. Irish scant, yeah.
Are you senator yet?
No, sir.
It's my pleasure then to introduce Avi Lipkin to come up and speak to us today. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Remember, when you have questions afterwards, raise your hand. Don't just speak out, and I'll come around and make sure we get this out.
Okay, the gentleman in the back who's filming asked me, am I going to talk about Putin and about the Russians going in, Syria going out of Syria, you know, how does that apply? And I kind of said to him in different words. I said, don't worry about the Russians. Okay, Russia today is a Christian nation. Putin's mom was a devout Christian. Putin is a devout Christian. Atheism of communism has been banned. There is no more atheism in Russia. So today, Russia is the greatest Christian country on earth, and America is now a socialist Muslim country. But your president is communist, and so he understands things very well with Putin. So they get along. I don't think it's going to be World War III because of the Russian war with the United States. I think the Russians and the U.S. government, which is a good thing, are coordinated. How many people here heard of the one world government? Okay, so I believe the one world government is going to snap into action very soon after ISIS kills a few million people. ISIS is planning to kill millions of people. This is not just, you know, a few people in Belgium. These are little things. So that kind of covers the realities of the world today. It's not the Jews, the Christians who will ban Islam. It'll be the one world government, because the one world government's God is mammon, or money. And this Islamic craziness is threatening the money of the one world government. So I will answer questions at the end about the one world government and ISIS and Russia and all these different things. But I want to talk about something that's going to take you all by surprise. I know we're taping, so I'm not going to acknowledge my hostess by name. I have a family here in Oklahoma City, dear Christian family, and I always stay with them when I come into town. Oklahoma City is literally the heart of America. It's right in the center of America. Things happen in Oklahoma City, and I think they're symbolic. They're symbolic for the whole country. And I spent yesterday our Jewish Sabbath in Tulsa with the rabbi there, Orthodox rabbi. And I wanted to share a few things about my life here in Tulsa, in Oklahoma City, things that have happened, things that are happening now, and things that are about to happen, including your elections. And I'm very concerned about Madam President. You know who she is. I am very concerned, and I'm going to talk about that. Because Americans, firstly, are not aware of many things that have happened, are happening. Some Americans might have known at some time, or they died, because 20 years have gone by since the Oklahoma City bombing. I'm going to talk about the Oklahoma City bombing, but I'm going to talk about other things too. This country is the greatest country on earth, or at least it was, because it was a Christian country. I'm a Jew who's telling you that. And it was Alexis de Tocqueville, who in the 1830s wrote a book called Democracy in America, and he said America will be the greatest country on earth because the American people are good people, which is still true, and their pulpits are on fire for the Lord. Because America is a Christian country, it's the greatest country on earth. Conversely, when America's pulpits will no longer be on fire for the Lord, America loses its preeminence in the world. And I don't blame Obama for the decline in Christianity in this country. I blame about 40, 50 years of American presidents, Democrat and Republican. I think it was 1962, prayer was taken out of school. So 1973, Roe versus Wade, that's not Obama. Obama wasn't even born. So there has been a decline. Taking out the 10 Commandments from the court, state court. And as I travel around the United States in the last 26 years, I see things that bother me. As a Jew who loves the Christians, I'm not a Christian, but I love the Christians. I love Christianity. I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm a candidate for office in Israel, for our parliament, our Congress or legislature. It's called the Knesset. I'm forming a Judeo-Christian Western Civilization and Democracy Party. The book is on the back table, called Israel's Bible Block. And it's about Jews and Christians marching together in Israel. Never happened in 2,000 years. Well, it's going to happen now. April 21st, I'm submitting my petition to the Israeli legislature, the Israeli Knesset. And within 42 days, we are going to be recognized, God willing. And I'm predicting we have a 6.5 million population of Jews and Christians, 6 million Jews, 500,000 Christians. I believe 10 million Jews and Christians are going to be moving to Israel very soon from the United States. Because ISIS is here. And ISIS is going to kill everybody. They're going to kill Jews, and they're going to kill Christian spouses. They're not going to kill all the Christians just yet. They're going to kill Jews, and Jews married to Christians have to be killed too. That's the ISIS plan. I know what I'm talking about. It's in the Red Book. It's in all the books on the table. Very, very radical things are about to happen. There will be 9/11 attacks. ISIS has promised that the upcoming attacks will make 9/11 pale in comparison. Do you understand why the one world government has to ban Islam? This is something that simply cannot be tolerated by the human race. And so Islam will be banned. What comes later, though, is not so good either, because it's going to be a one world government religion, one world government, everybody's going to have a chip. You know all this stuff. I'm not going to talk about these things. It's not going to be Christianity. So what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about my experiences here in Oklahoma. I'm going to start with a few questions just to see if we're in the same ballpark. Okay, how many people heard of Merrick Garland? How many people heard of Merrick Garland? I'm going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now you all heard about Antonin Scalia, your Supreme Court Justice who died under, I call it under suspicious circumstances. But we can't prove it, so you can't say it. So now you have 4 conservatives versus 4 liberals, and the President of the United States wants to appoint a gentleman by the name of Merrick Garland as the 9th Supreme Court Justice. Okay, next question. I'm going to talk about Merrick Garland in a second. How many people here believe that how many people remember the Oklahoma City bombing? Okay, you remember there was a bombing, and your president then, Bill Clinton, the husband of Madam President, okay, the husband of Hillary, yes, said, and how many people remember Janet Reno? Okay, now Janet Reno and Bill Clinton and the whole administration came out and said that the bombing in Oklahoma City was a Waco Christian right-wing militia bombing. How many people remember that the government said that? I see less than half. I mean, I'm telling you what your government was saying. Okay. I'm going to talk about that too. Well, Merrick Garland, the nominee for Supreme Court, was the deputy to Janet Reno. How many people remember he was the deputy to Janet Reno? And he took care, with such empathy, of the poor relatives of those who died at the bombing. Really good man. Had empathy for the survivors, you know. So I was here. Actually, I was in Tulsa the day of the bombing. And just to give you an idea of the kind of life I have, like my hostess here, again, we're taping. I don't want her to get into trouble because I don't know where this tape is going to go. And everywhere I go in the United States, I've got Christian people and some Jewish people waiting for me everywhere I go. And I mean, I stay in hotels, but most often I stay in Christian homes, which is good, because you don't know who's working in the hotels, and all you need is one telephone call, and within an hour you're dead. How many people know I have a 3-year jail sentence in Switzerland for saying that Allah is Satan and Islam is a criminal psychosis and not a religion at all? They said I was guilty of hate speech against the religion. Well, Islam is not a religion. It's a criminal psychosis bent on the destruction of the human race. Okay, so
I've been living in Israel 48 years. I always fly El Al, obviously because of security. They have very tough security. You get to Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. The moment you get out of the car, they're watching you. Israeli security is watching you. They have cameras everywhere. They're watching everything. As you approach the door to the terminal, there are guards at every door watching it. Actually, they have 1 or 2 gates, basically, the only gates you can get in, and they are with soldiers watching you. And not soldiers, you know, young boys and girls dressed civilian. These people are trained. I think the key word here is profiling. They are profiling everyone. Now, profiling is a politically incorrect word, but it is a genius word. And it's correct. It's politically incorrect, but it's absolutely correct. So you go through 2 screenings before you even get to the counter. If Belgium had had this, there would not have been a bomb. Okay. The problem is those same judges, same people who convicted me and gave me 3-year jail sentence in Switzerland are the same people who say that we shouldn't profile. So I come to the United States before 9/11, and in my first book, this came out in 1997, and it predicted 9/11. And everyone's saying, Avi is so politically incorrect, he's profiling, and it's not nice, and Muslims are great people. Yes, Muslims are great people, but they're going to blow up your World Trade Center. Then after it happened, Avi's a prophet! Avi's a prophet! I said, I'm not a prophet, I just listened to my wife. My wife is an intelligence gatherer for the Israeli government. She listens to them. They say they're going to do it. Listen to these enemies. They say exactly what they're going to do to the United States. And yet you have a PC government, whether it's Republican or Democrat, gets me very upset. And good people died. 3,000 people died on 9/11. Wasn't that Pearl Harbor of an Islamic nature? And yet the next day, George W. Bush, a man who personally I like very much, I have empathy with that president. But he said, Islam is a religion of love. Islam is a religion of peace. We all serve the same God. Now, are Satan and God one and the same? Okay, that's why I got a 3-year jail sentence to the Swiss. So I said to the Swiss, you know, don't let these people take over your country. Their God is Satan. So, okay. And the TSA of that time, there was no TSA. It was just, you know, local airport security. And I warned them, I said, we have such profiling and such security at the Tel Aviv airport, and you guys don't have anything. You guys are sitting ducks before 9/11. Oh, you Israelis are paranoid. They would never dare to attack America. Prior before the fall. I was talking about that before 9/11. And after 9/11, George W. Bush put everyone back to sleep again. Said, no, the Muslims, don't worry about it, go back to sleep. And the Bush family has received $17 billion from Halliburton, Carlyle, and Bechtel in the last 20 years, since H.W. left the White House. Barbara Bush and her son Neil from the S&M bank collapse. You remember that? They do the PR for the Saudi kingdom. Do you know how many billions of dollars that's worth over the last 27 years? I'm not attacking Democrats only. Because your leadership is bribed by the Saudis and by these petrodollars. Okay. Follow the money trail. So, there is a gentleman by the name of Stephen Emerson. How many people remember Stephen Emerson? 1, 2, 3. He made a PBS video called Jihad in America. How many people remember Jihad in America? I think some of my visits here was selling it, actually. This is a prophetic video. It was made by PBS. I saw it in San Antonio, November the 11th, 1994. And he made this in the aftermath of the first bombing of the World Trade Center in 1993. And the bottom line of his video was, if at first you don't succeed, try again. Muslims are going to keep attacking until they destroy the World Trade Center. And a large part of his movie was about Oklahoma City and the bombing in Oklahoma City. And again, here I am in Oklahoma City, or in Tulsa, and I'm picking up information, and I'm not claiming any credit. God gets all the credit because God gives me all this information. The problem is, if I get the information and I don't share it with you, then God's going to judge me. So I'm here sharing things. It says in Ezekiel 33, verse 6, it says, if the watchman on the tower sees the sword coming and he does not blow the shofar, the horn, to warn everyone in the city that the sword is coming, the blood of those people are in the hands of the watchman who did not sound the alarm. I'm here to sound the alarm. I could be killed for what I'm going to say now. When I came here for the first time in January '95, again to this wonderful hostess who's sitting with us here, and she opened the doors for me to be with J.R. Church, Prophecy in the News, and Noah Hutchings, Southwest Radio Church. How many people know these two ministries? These are local Christian ministries. You need to get acquainted with them. They've been around, they're still functioning. They host me, they host other great people. I don't want to say I'm great, but they host great people, and they have the honor to be with them. And one of the very first tapes that I made in 1995, in the summer of '95, which was after the Oklahoma City bombing, I said, they're going to take your planes and crash them into the World Trade Center. And that's what happened. I said, the plan of Islam is to destroy international commerce. Listen carefully. This is about money. They're going to destroy international commerce by destroying tourism, destroying the civilian airliners, destroying Disney World, whatever you want to call it. People are going to be so afraid to leave their homes. The tourism dies, the hotels die. You understand, this is a domino. If the hotels go down, everything else goes down. This is their strategy. So anyways, I was here for the first time. I have to correct myself, not in June '95, I was already here, January '95. So I'm here in town during the week. On the weekend, I go up to Tulsa to visit with the rabbi there. And I don't want to get into knocking the Jewish community, but the liberal Jews don't like it. The Jews who do like me usually are the Orthodox Jews, the ones who, it's funny that the true liberals in America are the Orthodox Jews and the Bible-believing Christians. Because the people who call themselves liberals are really socialists and totalitarians who don't want to hear anything except what they already agree with. So the bomb goes off in Oklahoma City. I'm in Tulsa. This is a Wednesday. I remember this very perfectly. Wednesday, April the 19th, 1995. And I have some Christian friends living in a place called Sapulpa, which is just 15 minutes west of Tulsa. And they say to me, listen, Channel 6 News, CBS News in Tulsa needs somebody, anybody who knows anything about Islam. Because it turns out in the city of Tulsa, nobody knows nothing, even despite of the fact that Oral Roberts is there. Oral Roberts University, but nobody knows anything about Islam because it's like it's on another planet. It is another planet. So I go there, and my interviewer says, so tell me, this is 2 hours after the bombing. He said, do you think this was an Islamic bomb? I had no proof. I said, yeah, it's an Islamic. I said, why are you so sure it's an Islamic bomb? So I said to now this is live TV in Tulsa. And I said, did you ever hear about the Marine barracks getting blown up in Beirut, Lebanon, and 241 Marines died? How many people remember that in 1983? Well, that was a truck bomb. The buildings in Lebanon are very flimsy. So if you bring a truck bomb, the whole building comes down. I don't know what came first. Was it the Marine barracks or the U.S. Embassy? Also gets blown up in Beirut. How many people remember that? 68 American diplomats are killed. 1988, you have Pan Am blown up over Lockerbie, Scotland, Libyan bomb. 1992, now my family's from Argentina. My grandparents were from Russia, they went to Argentina, then they came here. So Argentina is very much, anything happens in Argentina, I'm aware of it. So in 1992, a bomb goes off in Argentina, blowing up the Israeli embassy. So you have the American embassy blown up, the Israeli embassy blown up, done by Hezbollah also. 1992. 1993, and these are all truck bombs. 1993, another truck bomb blows up in New York City under the World Trade Center. And 6 people are killed and 1,000 people are injured. How many people remember the bombing in New York City in 1993? Truck bomb. 1994, another truck bomb blows up in Argentina, destroying the Jewish Cultural Center, in which 85 people are killed. Truck bombs going off everywhere. They are not Nazi truck bombs, they're not communist truck bombs. They're not Todo Japanese truck, they're Islamic truck bombing. Nobody else is doing this stuff. So I said, Islam is the only game in town. And then I asked my interviewer in Tulsa, did you see the PBS documentary? Which just, PBS buried this documentary under pressure from Clinton and the Arab agenda. Stephen Emerson made this video with the help of the FBI, the CIA, and the State Department when they were still patriotic institutions. You know what has happened to all of your intelligence agencies. They've been taken over by Muslim stooges who are making sure to it that U.S. intelligence is not intelligence anymore. That you cannot recognize the sickness known as Islam, which is out to destroy Christian America, because that's what it's all about. So they got me off that interview very fast. That night, I get a call from my friends in Sapulpa. Their parents live in McPherson, Kansas. I mean, you have to think for a moment. What do you think are the possibilities or probabilities that I'm going to get these pieces of information? It's only God who is saying, here's another piece of information. Here's another piece of information. What are you going to do about it? Our parents live in McPherson, Kansas. There was a local CBS affiliate that interviewed the merchant who sold the fertilizer to 3 Muslim men. How many people remember that? Next day, they paid cash, which is unusual, because fertilizer is bought usually by farmers who give a check or on credit. Cash is an unusual thing. And, you know, if you're a farmer, you buy a ton and a quarter of ammonium nitrate, you put it in your spreader and you spread it. No, these guys wanted the ammonium nitrate in reinforced, 100-pound reinforced paper bags. There's only one purpose for that, and that's a bomb. So the fertilizer merchant called the authorities, called CBS News, and told them that this was his suspicion. This was just hours after the bombing. The next day, I get another call from my Christian friends in Sapulpa that the FBI had visited the fertilizer merchant, confiscated, sequestered the interview, and said, don't talk about this anymore for reasons of national security. I mean, what's the possibility that a Jew living in Israel, teaching in America, staying in Tulsa, is going to get a call from people who have parents in McPherson, Kansas? I mean, you know what wonders me sometimes? How much information have I not received over the last 26 years? Stuff that's going on in this country, and it's covered up by the media, covered up by the government. Okay. So what I want to do is, with your permission, because there's a reason I'm doing this. You're going to see in a moment where I'm going with this. This is my book from 1997, it's Fanatic Islamic Global Threat. And you go to the very end, and I ask a few questions about Oklahoma City. Here are some facts about the Oklahoma City bombing. This is 1997. 1. Warnings had been received from the Middle East prior to the bombing from an article by Chaim Shibi, who, by the way, was like a next-door neighbor of mine, from the biggest newspaper in Israel, Yediot Ahronot, daily, Hebrew Daily, page 2, April 20th, 19th, not day after. The fertilizer salesman sold the fertilizers that were used in the bombing to 3 Middle Eastern Muslim men. The fertilizer, well, I covered that already. The 3 Middle Eastern men were seen escaping from the scene of the blast in a brown Chevrolet, and that this vehicle was later found abandoned at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport, also from Chaim Shibi's article. In other words, the FBI and the local police dropped the ball. You dropped the ball, you got to find another story to cover yourself. A week later, after I left Oklahoma, I was back in New York on my way back to Israel, and CNN, the paragon of virtue and the truth, the three Middle Eastern men were reported by CNN to have traveled on the highway in convoy with McVeigh when he was pulled aside by the highway patrol. This was a CNN public service announcement on behalf of the FBI a few months after the blast, and it was only aired only once. In other words, the government realized they made a mistake by saying, we're looking for those 3 Middle Eastern men. Because the agenda had made already a news story, which I'm going to get into in a moment. Radio Tehran, Iran reported immediately after the blast that it was an internal American affair. How did the Iranians know this so soon after the blast? Because that's what the government says. This was a Waco crazy Christian militia bombing as retaliation for what happened in Waco. Now, you all know Janet Reno really made a very big mistake because her handling of the Waco situation led to the death of dozens of people. This was a major, major crime committed by Janet Reno. It was a crime, killing American Christians. So a year later, the bombing in Oklahoma City, of course, is revenge. Where do you know this in the Bible? It's called killing and inheriting. You kill whoever you want to kill, and then you blame those people for what happens. Okay. That's 1997. I don't want to mention the name. Again, we're taping. I have a very dear friend here in Oklahoma City. And he tells me that the day of the bombing, he was sick in bed. And the bomb goes off. His whole place is shaking. It's far from downtown. This house is shaking. The bed is shaking. He puts on the police scanner. And for 2 hours, he's listening about how the Oklahoma police are setting themselves up to make roadblocks and catch these 3 Middle Eastern men. And after listening for 2 hours, he talks to somebody very high placed in Oklahoma, in the police or the authorities, tells him, is this true? He says it's true, but if you talk about it, you're going to be killed. If you talk about it, you're going to get killed. We're going to kill you. J.R. Church of blessed memory, after the Oklahoma City bombing, I said, let's blow the let's blow the lid off this can of worms. And he said, Avi, aren't you afraid to die? I know many people in Oklahoma City who are dead now because they volunteered, they came forward, and they told the truth about the Oklahoma City bombing. This is a very dangerous message for me personally, to do this. After 20 years, I can't understand nobody spoke about this. And Hillary Clinton and her husband are part of this cover-up, this treason against the American people. This is treason. I'm not talking about Obama. The Christians have been bashed in this country for 20 years since the Oklahoma City bombing. I know what it is as a Jew that we have been maligned and maligned and maligned through the centuries. Lies. Now, I look at the Christians. The same thing's happening to you guys. There's a Holocaust now in the Middle East. Nobody's talking about it because the American government is backing ISIS and the Saudis and all these crazy Islamic groups to kill Christians, to kill Kurds, to kill Druze, to kill Yazidis, to kill Shiites. I'm forming a Judeo-Christian party in Jerusalem to run for our government elections, and the Christian Arab businessmen with whom I'm very friendly, they hold my arm and say, why is it Vladimir Putin is the savior of the Christians in the Middle East and President Obama is the Muslim mass murderer of millions of Christians? And America doesn't talk about it. Churches don't talk about it. Christianity is being erased in the Middle East. Churches that have been around since the 2nd, 3rd century are being blown up. I live in the Middle East, so I know, I see it. I'm forming a Judeo-Christian party, and my Christian Arab friends are shivering to join they're afraid to join my party, because the Muslims live next door. And the Muslims in Israel say to the Christians in Israel, you see what's going on around us in Iraq and Libya, and also Libya, Iraq, Libya, Egypt, Syria, Lebanon. We're going to do it to you here also in Israel. In other words, the Muslims in Israel, Israeli Arabs, who are 1.5 million, are going to kill 100,000 Christians, Arab Christians. So the Arab Christians are very afraid to join my party. Because my party, very clearly, is confrontational with Islam. My party is a Judeo-Christian crusader movement. Not a Christian crusader movement, a Judeo-Christian. Jews and Christians are going to march together to defeat the devil. Because if Allah is the devil, you got to send them to the pits of hell for 1,000 years. I don't know if you understand where I'm coming from.
Yes.
So, with all due respect to my dear radio TV hosts here in town, I've been silent for 20 years. I was on the show, I said things, or I go to churches, I said things. Nobody's paying any attention. So Janet Reno is a criminal. She's guilty of the murder of the good people in Waco. Could have been done in a nicer way without killing people. But you know, Democrats are socialists. Socialists are very good at killing people. Christians turn the other cheek. So you're letting the socialists run all over you and kill you. Okay. So again, who's Merrick Garland? Merrick Garland was the deputy to Janet Reno 20 years ago. He's going to be your next Supreme Court justice.
Oh, no.
But nobody knows who Merrick Garland is. They don't know where he was during the Oklahoma City bombing, and he was part of that conspiracy to blame the Christians. The Christians got the bum rap for something they didn't do, because it was a Muslim bomb. But you can't say bad things about the Muslims because you need their money. Follow the money trail. Okay. How many people heard of Jana Davis? I see a few more hands. And I was hoping she'd be here this morning. Maybe I'll see her today or tomorrow. I don't know. I've met her before. So in my third book, which came out in 2003, I have some input from Jana Davis. Because what happens is the truth comes out. I mean, eventually you're picking up more and more stuff. With your permission, I will read from my book. Page 13. I call it Private Investigation. I'm not a private investigator. You know, I'm a spy like Maxwell Smart, Agent 86. Kind of like I'm stumbling onto stuff all the time in spite of myself. Okay? Saddam Hussein and the Oklahoma City bombing. Because the Oklahoma City bombing was a Saddam Hussein attack. How many people know that? If you don't raise your hand for that question, you need to get the white book and the red book. Okay? And I'm sorry to turn into commercial because, you know, the truth will set you free.
Are they on Amazon?
They're on Amazon, and now they're on Kindle also, as of this week. Thanks to my sons, because I'm totally challenged when it comes to those things. I know how to write books. I don't know how to make a computer work, so. Okay, it is now, I wrote this 6 years after Oklahoma City bombing, so that's, 2001. We're 2016. And this subject is still bouncing around without anyone realizing the real significance of the bombing. It is now over 6 years since the Oklahoma City bombing of April 19th, 1995. At the time I was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, only 100 miles away. As fate would have it, my Christian friends ranged from, okay, we did that. We did that. Okay, I'm looking at stuff that I said before. McPherson, Kansas. Okay, that story is here in this book. Okay. I have a few points here. One, a Middle Eastern terrorist group was living and working in the heart of Oklahoma City, just a few miles from the Murrah Federal Building. So how many people know that there were Iraqi Army Republican guards here in Oklahoma City under the guise of being refugees?
Back then?
Yeah. In fact, there's a gentleman, whom I won't mention, but if anyone wants more information, you can talk to somebody here in the room that I'll tell you in a moment, that had a hotel. And it was like for transients, for a temple. And there were young Iraqi men, army age. And every day, this white fellow would pop up there. It was Timothy McVeigh. So when Timothy McVeigh was arrested and he was in court, the owner of the hotel said, that guy was at my hotel every day visiting these Muslim Iraqis. And they were cheering when the bomb went off. This was not a Christian bomb. And yet your government is spilling your blood by libeling. A former member of Saddam Hussein's Republican Guard was identified with McVeigh on the day of the bombing prior to the, okay, this is what I just said. On the day of the bombing, Republican Guard from Iraq accompanied McVeigh, got that too. Okay, Jana Davis has 24 sworn witness affidavits that tie 7 to 8 Arab men to various stages of the bombing plot. She says she had hundreds of documents. The evidence does incriminate McVeigh and Nichols, but shows that the bombing was masterminded and funded by Osama bin Laden. The Oklahoma City bombing was, in her opinion, a foreign conspiracy. In addition, there were witnesses that Ramzi Youssef, how many people remember Ramzi Youssef? Ramzi Youssef made the truck bomb in the first attack on the World Trade Center in 1993. and he made a clean getaway to Pakistan. You know how they caught this guy? He eventually went to the Philippines, and he was making, how many people heard of Operation Bojinka? Operation Bojinka was a plan to blow up 12 American airliners in the Far East. On one day, you know, a very concentrated attack. They would get ceramic bombs with nitroglycerin in them, which passed the metal detector. And there was one plane that was flying to Narita Airport in Japan, and one of these bombs blew up, making a hole in the plane. And the plane landed successfully, in an emergency landing, but one of the passengers was sucked out of the plane. How many people remember that? That's part of Operation Bojinka. Okay. So he had 12 more bombs ready to go. He was making a 13th bomb, lucky number, and he set off one of these chemical fires in his kitchenette there. And these kitchen fires, these chemical fires, if you put water on them, the oxygen and hydrogen separate, have a tremendous bomb. So he just ran out to the fire escape, and he escaped, but he left his computer on. So when the Filipino fire brigade arrived and the police, they had all the information on this guy. He went back to Pakistan, and of course U.S. authorities found this guy. He is now in Canyon City, Colorado, in the penitentiary there. With Sheikh Omar Abdul Rahman and all these other guys. They're all there together partying. So they got this guy. So how many people remember Terry Nichols? Now Terry Nichols trained in the Philippines with this Ramzi Youssef. How can you say it's a Christian bomb? It's a Saddam Hussein bomb, and they're blaming the Christians for it. Okay, now there's another lady. Let me see if I have any more here. I'm talking about Jana Davis. When Jana Davis turned to the FBI in September 1997, the FBI outrightly refused to take the information. The U.S. media claims that this was an oversight, but according to Dr. Lori Milroy, has anyone here heard of Dr. Lori Milroy? Dr. Lori Milroy is almost as bad as my wife. There is no woman in the world who yells at me as much as my wife. Dr. Lori Milroy is a close second. And she's saying to me, Avi, you're doing the American people a disservice by saying that this is an Islamic bomb. It was not an Islamic bomb. It was a Saddam Hussein terrorism bomb. Well, duh, what's the difference? I mean, Saddam is gone, and now you have ISIS, and you have Al-Qaeda. It's all the same crap, excuse me, all the same Satan. So Dr. Lori Milroy, who was working at that time for the Department of Justice in Washington, said to me, you have no idea how much information we have on Saddam Hussein and the stuff he's doing. It's not an Islamic religious bomb. It is a state terrorism bomb against the United States. It was 1997, 2001.
So does that sort of exonerate George Bush?
I will say one thing to exonerate George Bush. George Bush was in the White House 9 months after, 9 months after he came to the White House was the bombing in New York City. George W. Bush inherited a horrible situation with U.S. law enforcement and intelligence. As you know, the walls were up. The FBI, the CIA, the State Department, NSA, nobody was talking to nobody. And of course, all these Clinton appointees are all politically correct people. I mean, you know, George W. did not come in and purge everybody, maybe he should have. I will say something else, though. There's a book about Osama bin Laden, the terrorist. I don't remember exactly the name of the book, or I don't remember the name of the author. A very good book. I read it, I bought it, I have it at home. I'm going to try and find it and bring it with me next time. And he says that there was an agreement between Bill Clinton and Osama bin Laden. America would pay Osama bin Laden protection money, and Osama bin Laden would stop attacking. This is after, 1995. What happened was George W. Bush refused to pay the protection money, and that's when 9/11 happened. In other words, if you surrender to Islam and you do whatever they tell you to do, you are maybe a little less likely to be attacked. There will still be those who won't accept the agreement, they'll still attack you. Okay. Let me just check one more thing. I mean, this is stuff that affects America, affects the West, affects Israel. How many people remember TW 800? Okay, now, Firstly, I was in New York City when TWA-800 was shot out of the sky. And I was watching something, sometimes by mistake, the TV studio makes a mistake, puts something on which is not according to what the agenda wants to appear. And what I saw was satellite imagery of the plane as it was spiraling in flames to the ground. It was spiraling. In other words, the wing was shut off between engine 3 and 4. It was a heat-seeking missile. It's in my book. President Kennedy's assistant, what's his name? I don't know. It's in my book here.
Lincoln.
Huh?
Lincoln.
No. Give me a second. I'll find it. It's right here. Pierre Salinger. Pierre Salinger interviewed the captain of an Air France airliner that had taken off just before the TW-800. And he told Pierre Salinger that he was successful in dodging the missile that came at him, because there are all kinds of evasive measures you can do to escape the missile. And then the missile was up there already, and then he just went for the next heat-emitting source, which was TW-800. But the agenda was that to say it was a fuel injection explosion, and that the front of the plane separated from the rest of the plane, and then the plane went straight down. But I saw on the TV, the plane was spiraling down, which means it was the wing, it was a missile. And Dr. Lori Milroy yells at me. She's always yelling at me. I haven't heard from her in years. I'd love to get yelled at by her again. I wonder what she would share with me. And she was always saying, don't talk about it, because there's a gag order, we cannot talk about the truth. TW-800, does anyone know what day it was shot down on? It was on Iraq's Independence Day. And Saddam Hussein, the day before, said, I'm going to give the world a big surprise. So all this stuff that's going on is Saddam Hussein. I would venture to say that part of the attack on the World Trade Center, okay, it was Osama bin Laden, but it was also Saddam Hussein. And that the American invasion of Iraq in 2003 to overthrow Saddam Hussein completely, this was payday. Because Saddam Hussein was totally dedicated to destroying America. I won't go into the reasons why. From his position, he was right. So the invasion of Iraq was all part of the same strategy. And I'll tell you another thing. My wife was watching satellite imagery of the trucks, semis, that were leaving Iraq and crossing into Syria at the Abu Kamal border crossing. They were carrying weapons of mass destruction from Iraq into Syria. So you ask where the weapons are, they're in Syria. I don't know where they are now. Maybe they're in the hands of ISIS now. But the Democrats are saying all the time there were no weapons of mass destruction, and I'm sorry that Trump says that that he would have voted against the invasion of Iraq, and there were weapons of mass destruction. And Saddam was totally dedicated to destruction of America. And in this case, George W. Bush was 100% right. It wasn't about bringing democracy to Iraq. It was about getting rid of Saddam Hussein. And as they say in law enforcement circles in America, what comes later comes later. So what I want to, I don't know if I should say what to conclude, because I'm here as long as you want me to be here. We can do questions and answers, and I'm totally free to discuss anything you want. But what bothers me is that the media has not been fair. It has not told the public about what really happened in Oklahoma City. The Christians got the bum rap. The Christians are always getting the bum rap in this country. It's not cool to be a Christian. I think you probably all know that you cannot grace or pray to God in schools, but if you're Muslim, you have a prayer room. So prayer in schools is mandatory for Muslims. 7th grade social studies classes in California, Florida, Wisconsin, Minnesota, other places that I don't even know, they have enforced teachings for all American kids to learn about Islam, to dress up like Muslims, to learn Arabic words, to pray like Muslims, to declare the Shahada. To declare the Shahada means you have converted to Islam. they're making American kids, not realizing it, convert to Islam. The Shahada says there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. Again, if Allah is Satan, that is not good for America, which is what I preach in the churches. I have a 26-hour teaching, it's all in the back, on the table. I don't know where this country is going. I'm not going to say I favor Trump. I'm not going to say I favor Cruz. Of course, for me, any Republican would be better than Madam President.
Please don't use that term. That is a bad term, Madam President.
If I say her name, I'm going to throw up.
Just say the witch.
I want you to know, I visited my home synagogue in Long Island in New York, and they asked me, oh, what do you think about Hillary? And I said, well, I don't think she should be shot, but I think she should be burned at the stake with her drill. I've not been in that synagogue ever since. So, I don't know. I believe in the greatness of America. The question is, will there be a Christian revival before or after the 9/11 attacks that are planned for this country? And my job here today is to speak to those people who will listen, and I don't have to tell you that there are a lot of people who don't want to listen. The media does not want to listen because the media gets its money from advertising. The advertising comes from the big corporations, which are backed by Islam. And another thing, any station, including Fox News, let's be honest, you know, I think everyone here watches Fox News and not the CNN or MSNBC. Fox News is traded on Wall Street. And so if a prince from Abu Dhabi buys 20% of the stock, he comes in and he fires everybody who's anti-Islamic or pro-Israel or pro-Christian. Then after everybody's fired, they sell the stock, they go to some other, wherever they hear that there are troublemakers against Islam. So basically the only place where Avi Lipkin can speak is in certain churches that are open to hearing this, tea parties, and a group like this. That keeps me busy every day of the year. God bless you. Questions?
Questions? Okay. Hold on.
Let me just make one more comment on current stuff. His latest book is this book right here. It is a masterpiece. I mean, he has put together volumes where you read a couple of paragraphs, you want to go back and get a history book, just read that whole historical thing. It talks about ISIS, Islam, how they fit together, where they're going, and what's going to happen to them. So, although he didn't get into it, this book right here is a masterpiece. It really is.
Also, this book, because I'm a Sovietologist and I understand what how Russians think and their history, and the Russians have been fighting the Turkish Muslims for 1,000 years. So, if you want to know about Russia, you know, I know a lot of people say, "Are you going to talk about Russia?" It's in the book. Get the book, and of course, I have other CDs and DVDs, and I have other subjects that are very controversial, and they affect every Christian. Because we are now in those days when I think the devil will be sent to the pits of hell for 1,000 years. We're going to be seeing the Messiah. I'm a Jew saying this to Christians. You know?
I'll give them a price on the books they're asking.
Okay, firstly, let me say one thing. Books can vary between $15 and $20 because 3 of them are $20 and 4 are $15. If you buy 2, 3, 4, 5, if you buy a few books, it comes out to $10 a book. So, you know, if you like to read books, get all 7 of them. You have 67 years of my life there. There's a lot of military intelligence, a lot of study. I'm an expert on Russia, Eastern Europe, the Turks, the Arabs, Islam. And I'm kind of an expert on America now. And, you know, Americans sometimes need somebody living in Israel like myself who can look as an observer and say, listen, this is what you guys need to do. Yeah.
Go ahead. State your first name.
I'm Jim. I want to back up what you said. I'm an ex-media guy, and that morning of the bombing, I was a rescuer, but I had connections in the media, and my friend at WKY, after the bombing...
Does everyone hear this gentleman? If you don't hear him, come stand here and face the group.
After the bombing, my friend at WKY kept beating the drum, the same drum you're beating, and he's 35 years old, and he has a heart attack on his front lawn and dies. No, he didn't. He was killed. I did 27, they gave my name to people in media, and I did 27 broadcasts all over the world about the bombing. And they kept shutting me off because we were looking for
3
white guy and 2 Arabs.
Yeah.
And the lady you mentioned,
Jayla Davis.
she observed McVeigh's execution and said he was breathing as he left the room to the private ambulance.
Wow.
She says that in her book. Is that not true?
I don't know. I don't know. There are a lot of updates that I have yet to receive from Jana Davis. I will ask her if I see her today or tomorrow. Thank you very much. Yes.
And then say your first name.
My name is Carrie Bell, and I just want to ask, do you have any little tidbits of where you think the next bomb might be? I mean,
Wherever the security is lax.
that's everywhere.
The Oklahoma City bombing happened because security was non-existent.
That'd probably be the basketball game next Saturday. I mean, honest to God.
Let me tell you something.
Any clue?
You're very right. In Israel, I hope you all come to visit us. Roberta has this group coming in May. You know, what's the big deal? $3,000. The price is a very good price. When you're in Israel, you go into the mall, you go through a metal detector. You cannot enter a mall or a public building without a metal detector. If you are driving into the mall parking lot, you have to open your trunk, and the trunk is inspected. Most important, it's not so much an inspection of the trunk. The security people look at your face, and they ask you a question. So if you answer in English, they go, okay, let her over. But they have the Arab people profiles. And a lot of Arabs complain, you know, that they get on the plane in Tel Aviv and they're detained and they're okay, but, you know, better than having the plane shut down. The malls are under surveillance, restaurants are under surveillance, soccer games, you know, any game, you know, any place where tens of thousands of people meet, or a small restaurant of 50, 60 people, you have a guard. It may be good for the guard business, have people having jobs. It's not easy. But in America, you don't have any of this. I'll even say something else. Sometimes I fly here in the United States. I leave my van. I fly Canada or California or New York or wherever. And you can, like Belgium, like Brussels, you can get out of your car with a suitcase. Nobody's checking you. You can go up to the counter for ticketing, open your suitcase, pull out a machine gun, and kill 100 people. Today, in any American airport. So America has not learned anything from what happened in Brussels. And if you try to tell them to do it, you're guilty of racism and profiling.
Statement here first. Hold on.
Yes.
Let me make just one quick announcement, and I think I'm still correct. Avi has had a cancellation. He is going to be in Oklahoma City through Thursday morning. So if you know a church you would like to have him Wednesday night, he is available. He's got to be in Houston this weekend, and then a couple of weeks from now he's going back to Israel. But he will be available for a church here in the Oklahoma City area Wednesday night. If you know somebody who would like to have him, get in touch with me and we'll set it up.
If there is no church and there's a home meeting of 20, 30 people, that would work too. And I don't charge a fee. I get an offering, but I don't charge a fee.
State your first name.
Yes.
Okay, my name is Jean. My question is, sometimes timing is everything.
Right.
Regarding ISIS being here, we have had incidents, but nothing huge like 9/11 since Obama.
Yeah.
Timing being as it is, why isn't there activity happening now if they're here? What do you foresee or project as to when we might expect this?
Okay. How many people were involved in the 9/11 attack? 19. Okay. Now, I'm going to share something, and this will take about 5-10 minutes, but it'll give you an idea of where I think we're going. Okay. There are two types of Islamic agenda. There is what I call the revolutionary, and there's the evolutionary. Revolutionary is ISIS, or Al-Qaeda, or Taliban, or all these groups that want to destroy America. Evolutionary is the Saudi government and the Emirates. These people, they pay money to the terrorists to go off to fight jihad in Afghanistan or Syria or Iraq. ISIS is a Saudi creation. On the other hand, the approach of the King of Saudi Arabia has always been, we will take over America through the use of our oil and our money. And now, population transfer. We don't want to destroy America. We'll take it over gradually, incrementally, with the use of our money. We were going to buy out the politicians. I described that very well here. This is where it says also that the Bush family got $16 billion. This is written 13 years ago. I don't want to mention a name, but I was in Houston, where I'm going this Sunday, and very top Republican guy, local guy, his wife told me that she picked up a general retired from the U.S. military, and he said that he had $2 million invested in Dubai. Now, where does an American general get $2 billion to invest in Dubai? From Dubai! And they buy, I'm telling you, they buy out American generals. I mean, if you're kind of nice and you're okay with them, they're nice and okay with you, and they know that this guy is, you know, flagged for future leadership in America, they buy you out. What's $1 million, $2 million? What's $1 billion? Okay. So this is from a story. I travel all over the U.S. and I meet with people from all different walks of life, and Republicans and Tea Party. Sometimes I hear things from Democrats, believe it or not. So the Saudi plan is not to blow up buildings and kill people. No, the Saudi plan is to come in, bring in millions of Muslims into this country. And, you know, I want to ask you a question, okay? This is a very complicated question you asked. It's a simple question. The answer is complicated, okay? How many people here think the dollar is going to collapse? If you believe the dollar is going to collapse, how many people think the American economy is going to collapse? Okay? So, I go to the Tea Parties that everyone thinks the dollar is going to collapse and the U.S. economy is going to collapse. What is the motor of economic development in any country in the world? Housing. When you have a strong housing situation, it radiates to all aspects of the economy. America is going to take in millions of Muslims, because that's the agenda of President Obama. It will be the agenda of Hillary if she gets elected, God forbid. It might even be the agenda of Trump. Trump wants to make America great again. You want to make America great? You have to go with the Saudis. I mean, I hate to say it, because there may be people here who voted Trump. I personally love Trump. I'm from New York. I love that kind of crazy guy. Cruz, he's a Christian. His decision-making is Christian, which I like. But anyone who gets elected president of the United States of America, from whatever party, the Arabs make it very clear, the day they enter the White House, you're going to do what we're going to say. We own you. America is a colony of Saudi Arabia. America has lots of room for Islamic cities in this country, Islamic colonies. You're talking about eventually tens of millions of people. And so the American economy and the dollar are going to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And I heard today, I think it was in the news today, that Obama has a 53% approval rating. Why does he have such a high approval rating? Because the economy is doing pretty good. I mean, many people think it's not doing good, but 53%, it's all about the economy. Now, if you go against the Saudis, they threaten, I don't believe they will, but they will threaten to pull their money out of America. They will do it in ways in which you will feel it. And they will bring you back to working with them. Okay?
Next question.
No, I'm not finished. I haven't answered the question yet.
No, finish because it's not on the subject.
Okay. When George W. left the White House, Wall Street had fallen from 12,000 to 6,000. How many people remember that? Obama enters the White House, within 2 months it's back to 12,000. Now, was that because the American economy was doing just so well? It was because of artificial insemination by the Saudis. The deal is, he's a Muslim, I've been saying so long, President Obama is a Muslim, he's doing the Muslim bidding, and if America is in bed with the devil, with Allah, with Islam, America will be financially blessed. Later you go to hell in a handbasket, but that's something else. So if they bring you millions of Muslims, and one of the purposes of the Arab Spring, the so-called Arab Spring, all these revolutions and civil wars in the Islamic countries, is to shift the population, make an invasion of Europe, make an invasion of America, build houses for these people, and then they're here forever. And meanwhile, Christianity is suppressed by the government, because it's all about money. And again, you know, I hope I don't offend anyone. I don't know if Trump is going to go against the Saudis, because it's all about business. How do you make America great? You do business. Well, you do business with people who have the money. Who have the money, do you? Okay, now I answer your question. You're asking about the revolutionaries. The revolutionaries, you have to get into the Muslim mindset, which is what I do. The king of Saudi Arabia has to be assassinated, so says ISIS. Why? You see, there's so much corruption, so much anti-Islamic corruption by the king and his family. You know, they go off to gambling and drinking and prostitution, which is not officially in Islam. Of course, everyone does it, but it's not Islamic religion. Then when they're over the airspace of Saudi Arabia, they put back their robes and they're holy rollers again, okay? Then, Saudi Arabia is a country of 19 million people. And they got 1 million Hindu slaves from India. They have 1 million Catholic slaves from the Philippines. And these people have to be either expelled or beheaded. That's what ISIS says. If the king doesn't expel them, ISIS is going to... Now, do you take the ISIS people at their word that they're going to cut off the heads of all these people? Thirdly, the king of Saudi Arabia is guilty of heresy by being a collaborator with the Christian West. How do you destroy Christianity? You destroy the economy. The one world government economy. So if you blow up the oil wells, I'm going to say some really crazy stuff now. ISIS has said they're going to blow up the oil wells. Because the way to destroy Christianity is to destroy the economy. You destroy the oil wells in Saudi Arabia and the Gulf, within 2 weeks there's no more oil. And if there's no more oil, there's no more plastic. If there's no more plastic, there's no more economy. That's the plan of ISIS. That's why the one world government is going to ban them. But together with that, they're going to carry out 9/11 type attacks. Now, I'm jumping around a lot, but I'm coming back. I'm forming a political party in Israel. Why? Our population in Israel today is 6 billion Jews, 500,000 Christians. Christians are like 8%. They should have 8 members of Knesset out of 120 of our legislature. Christians don't have any representation. It's not because we're anti-Christians, it's because the Christians are a relatively new community. It's the Russians and the Ukrainians and others who came 20 years ago. I'm forming a political party in which my candidate list, you don't go by individuals per district like in America. In Israel, you go by political list. Israel is one constituency. Every 45,000 votes gets the next man or woman in. So my candidate list is Jew, Christian, Jew, Christian, Jew, Christian, Jew, Christian. We have today 14% of the people could potentially vote for my party, which means I could get with 14, 15 members of Knesset, which would actually make me a minister in the next government after the next elections in Israel. So what am I saying? The testimony, which is in this book and in other books, the later books, is that Islam is going to kill every Jew they can find. Because it says in the Hadith, in Islam, you have to kill all the Jews on Saturday and all the Christians on Sunday. I predict you have 6-7 million Jews outside of Israel, married to about 3-4 million Christians. And when they come to kill the Jew, they have to kill the Christian spouse. They have to kill the children of the intermarriage. And anybody who is targeted for death by these terrorists, if they don't move to Israel, they're going to be killed. Or they've got to hide in some cave. And so I'm predicting an immigration to Israel, like the Muslims are coming here, the Jews are going to leave America or die. And they're going to take their Christian spouses with them. So if you're asking me when, I would say at this stage, I don't predict imminent 9/11 type attacks on American soil. It could be. But you see, ISIS knows that Saudi Arabia owns the United States. And so this would happen maybe sometime later. Okay, now, I don't know if you know this or not, 92% of the Muslims support ISIS. ISIS is not an aberration. ISIS is the true, pure, pristine Islam. And these are all good children of the Saudi families. Jordan, Saudi Arabia are going to fall to ISIS very soon. When that happens, then all bets are off. Because the Saudi king, if he doesn't flee and come here, because the Saudi family all have homes here already. They're ready to escape. Because, you know, he who sows wind reaps a whirlwind. So these Saudis, they created ISIS, they created Taliban, they created Al-Qaeda. And these people look at the king of Saudi Arabia and say, he created us, but he's a hypocrite. He works with the Christians, with the Christian one world economy. Chinese won't tolerate it, Hindus won't tolerate it, Japan won't tolerate it, Europe won't tolerate it. And America, even with a Muslim president, really cannot tolerate it. So if you ask me, I think America may be, relatively speaking, America could be attacked tomorrow with horrendous results. Because America's not ready for it. America's still a sitting duck. America has not learned anything from 9/11. That's why I'm here today. And you know what? I would not be surprised if things happen and they blame the Christians again. In order to cover up who the real culprits are.
Yes.
What?
Maybe this club.
All the red states, you know, Texas, Oklahoma. Yes, next question.
Dee Dee.
What?
Dee Dee,
Edie, okay.
I want to know, Willie, this is off the, they were saying that they're gonna, ready to rebuild the temple.
Right.
Is that going on?
Did you hear the question?
No.
Will the third temple be rebuilt in Jerusalem? Okay? And that question fits actually perfectly onto the previous question. No, it's okay, it's okay. I'm getting to the entertaining part. It's okay.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I think it's being taped, so you can get a copy of it.
We have to go to work.
Somebody has to go.
It's not fair.
Okay, now, you know, I have to tell you something. I've been speaking in churches now for 26 years. At the end of every time I speak in the church, there's always some lady who gets it, like you, and be blessed, and she gets this, when are you Jews going to build the temple? So I said to the lady, this happened in Springfield, Missouri, so I said to the lady, listen, to build the third temple, the mosques have to go. And if we touch the mosques, it's World War III. So the pastor was sitting right behind me, and he whispered, but just loud enough for everyone to hear it, he said, burn it down. I said, Pastor, we can't burn down those mosques. Burn it down right now! So the thing is this, if we are talking about World War III, Israel's not going to provoke World War III. But if World War III breaks out anyway, okay, I'm going to develop this now.
Yeah.
ISIS is now being attacked in Iraq and in Syria. But I don't know if you know this or not, ISIS is very strong from Libya all the way to Nigeria and all the way to Morocco. All of that, from Central Africa to North Africa, is controlled by ISIS. There's not really any way you can control it. You can't even, what do you call it, what would Cruz say?
Carpet bomb.
You can't carpet bomb the desert, but you have to find these people to kill them. It's so big, the desert. I have information that there are tribes in Jordan that have already made agreements with ISIS. They hate King Abdullah. Now, King Abdullah always attacks Israel, but between you and me, King Abdullah of Jordan is an ally of Israel. I don't know if you know this, Israel supplies Jordan with all its water.
Sure.
Jordan used to have water 2 days of the week. 5 days of the week, there was no water in the taps in Jordan. Israel spends billions of dollars to build desalination plants, and so we provide Israel and Jordan with all their water needs. And Jordan has taken in 1.6 million refugees from Syria. We're giving the Syrian refugees water. Nobody talks about it. Israel is overflowing with water today. This is part of the prophecies of Isaiah. But a lot of the Bedouin tribe hate Abdullah because he's not a Jordanian, he's a Saudi. The British, 100 years ago, gave the Hashemite family Iraq, Syria, and Jordan, and then the House of Saud got Saudi Arabia. I mean, if you know the history, you got to know the history of these things. So they hate him. He's an outsider. So within the Jordanian army, you have everyone's Bedouin, or Palestinian, and there's a very large percentage of these people, at least 80%, are pro-ISIS. So Jordan, if they kill King Abdullah, and Israel is very proactive in providing intelligence information for Abdullah to keep him alive. Because as much as he attacks Israel verbally, he's an ally of Israel. Israel has now signed an agreement with Jordan to provide them with all their natural gas. So we're providing them with water, natural gas. You know, it's unbelievable. Egypt and Jordan make peace agreements with Israel. They're profiting tremendously from the peace agreement with Israel. Those who bless Israel will be blessed, and those who curse Israel will be cursed. It's in the Bible. So Jordan could fall. Saudi Arabia is 92% pro-ISIS. And a lot of people hate the king of Saudi Arabia because precisely for that reason they're true believing Muslims, and he's working with the Christians. What's this business of working with the Christians? If you're a true believing Muslim, you've got to destroy Christianity. Okay. Now, when ISIS takes Saudi Arabia, they said they're going to do 3 things. You're listening, Dee Dee? I know you're writing. Are you taking notes or?
Yeah, taking
Yeah. ISIS has said they're going to do 3 things. First thing they're going to do, they're going to kill the king. I predict the king will be in America by then, king of Saudi Arabia. Second thing they're going to do, they're going to blow up the oil wells, which means intervention of the one world government. Saudi Arabia, I believe, will be invaded by the United Nations order. We're going to have Chinese and India and Japan. And I mean, if President Obama, if it happens now, you know, Obama doesn't want to get involved in something like that. So the other nations will. Yeah, you've got 2 billion Buddhists and 1 billion Hindus, and you've got Japanese, 140 million, and you've got the Europeans. I mean, America, praise God, has its own oil, so America doesn't want to get involved. America is becoming more and more isolations. So the other nations will divide up Saudi Arabia and secure the oil wells. Okay, here comes the crazy part. Are you with me? Now, you all know that the holiest place of Islam is the Black Stone in Mecca. Now, I've been saying for years that I was going to blow up the Black Stone. ISIS is going to beat me to the punch. They're going to do it because the Black Stone was a place of great prostitution, bestiality, sleeping with animals, sacrificing of children on the altar of Moloch. That Black Stone was Moloch. When Muhammad came, he said, now it's Islam, and we're going to purify the place, and these things are not going to happen anymore. And indeed, Muhammad brought an improvement to the pagan situation that had been there all along. I have a book, the Yellow Book, that talks about how Moses and Aaron and Jethro were all there. You know, the black phylacteries Jewish men wear on their forehead and on their, that's Kaaba and Mecca. Rabbis want to kill them. We were there. When we left the, what?
It was a Jewish town.
It was a Jewish town. The Jews were all over Saudi Arabia at that time. I mean, I would need 2 hours just to develop this thing now. I don't want to get into it now. That Black Stone is holy for Muslims, but for ISIS, it has to be destroyed. You know, the Syrians just took the city of Palmyra after it had been lost and got blown up by the ISIS. Syrians took it back, which actually is a good thing. There's no reason to blow up the antiquities. You remember the tremendous statue of Buddha in Bamiyan province in Afghanistan? Why would they blow it up? Leave it alone. It's a historic treasure. They blew it up. Anything that was pre-Islamic has to be destroyed. So the Black Stone is pre-Islamic, it has to be destroyed. So ISIS doesn't realize it, but when they blow up the Black Stone, they're cutting off the head of the snake. They're cutting off the head of their own religion. ISIS is going to destroy Islam, but that is the nature of the beast. That is the nature of Satan, the divisiveness within the Islamic camp. They're killing each other. Okay. So here comes Avi Lipkin's prediction. I'm the only one in the world who's saying this crazy stuff, and it's in the most recent book that Pastor Glenn was showing you. It's also in the Yellow Book about Mecca. When they take Saudi, when they blow up the Black Stone, and when they try to blow up the oil wells, and the oil wells are occupied by Western forces or by world forces, and then they're going to come to Israel, and they're going to say to Israel, you're going to help us. You're there. You know, Israel's like a land-based aircraft carrier for the world. And you're going to take Mecca, Medina, and Mount Sinai. How many people know that the real Mount Sinai is not in Egypt, it is in northwest Saudi Arabia? I've got the most recent 4 hours of DVD by Jim and Penny Caldwell. How many people heard of Jim and Penny Caldwell? And they're in Diamond Head, Mississippi. They lived 12 years in Saudi. I recommend it. You got 35 bucks? Get it. It's very good. I'm selling it. You watch it for 4 hours, you understand the real Mount Sinai is in northwest Saudi, very close to Israel. And if it's the mountain of God, if it's the mountain of Moses, if it's the mountain where we were given the 10 Commandments, how can we leave it under the control of the Muslims? So the one world government is going to say to us, you're going to secure northwest Saudi, and we are commanding you, are you listening? We're commanding you to build your third temple because Islam is now gone. I'm saying Islam is going to be banned because it's such a crazy system, the world is not going to tolerate it for very long. So Israel's going to build the temple, and then they're going to say to Israel, we of the one world government are going to send our top person to officiate. I see you putting your hand to your head. So you understand the connection? So we're going into very crazy times. Messiah is kind of around the corner. It's not a joke.
We're down to 2 questions.
Yes.
Well, I was just a comment on the TWA 800. I mean, at that time, even a lot less than today, limited overhead satellite assets. We saw satellite imagery. How did they know to train a satellite on that very location at that time before something like that happened?
Well, I don't know if it was before, but as it was spiraling down,
To target satellite assets, to move and align and look at an area, that takes time.
yeah.
That's
you
not
know what,
just like,
I
oh,
don't-
something's happening, let's train that.
You
Back
know
then,
what?
it took a lot more time.
You know what, I don't know how that happened, but I will say one thing.
It just gives credence to, if there's satellite imagery, somebody knew previously.
That could also be, but the point was, Dr. Lori Lodroy said to me, she said that the day before, U.S. intelligence knew something was going to happen. They were probably watching that flight path, and I don't have to tell you, Kennedy Airport, or any airport basically, you have a flight path. If you don't hit one plane, the missile goes for the next heat emitting source. Yes?
Don, last question.
Did you have a question? Okay, after this gentleman.
This will be the last one.
Okay, afterwards, come to the table. We'll take it.
Well, this is gonna be short. Last time you were in town, you told us that you ran across a youth camp in Central Texas recently that was occupied by a whole bunch of young Muslim males. And since then, have you heard of other camps in the United States?
I do know of Islamic encampments, training camps all over the U.S. I'm trying to remember the name of the guy who writes about this. Stackelbeck is in touch with this guy. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. Not John McTurnan. There's another guy, Paul. I don't remember his name now. He's in Pennsylvania. But there are like 26 Islamic camps, training camps.
Can I give a short answer to that?
Yes.
I have a good friend who's an Assembly of God minister in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And he told me at the Waxahachie Southwestern Assembly of God School, they are using their dorms to house, they're calling them refugee young people. He said it's got to be under 18. He said he was there, met a guy who was 30 years old at least. But he said he was only 18, so he was able to be in there. But the government is paying them, let me see if I can remember the exact amount of money. They were getting over $1 million a month to house, provide food, room, and clothing to those refugees right there, Southwestern. And he said that's only a token of what the Catholic Church is doing. And they are doing it on the basis of they're going to be evangelizing these. But that was right there, and they were paying, I think, I told that here one time, $500 per day per person that they are paying to provide food, clothing, and housing. And the Assemblies of God Church in Waxahachie, Texas, are the beneficiaries of it, making over $1 million a month. And at least that was as of, what, 2 months ago when I was down there. So yes, they do have these camps.
How many people here heard about the charter jet captain who quit his job because he was flying every day? He was flying in Somalis and other Muslim guys, and the plane would land on the tarmac. It would not go to the terminal. It would go to the end of the runway, and then 2 buses would come and give each Muslim guy $3,000, and then take them in buses up to Minnesota or Michigan or Maine. And he quit the job because he said this is patently illegal, but the government is doing it. I'm not even talking about people illegally coming over from Mexico. People are flying into this country illegally through government-sanctioned charter jet flights. And I'll say one more thing, which I know I said here in the past. I've got 3 lady friends in Joplin, 75-year-old ladies who are still working, very spry young ladies. And every day they work with the trucks. And you know, mile marker number 4 in Missouri, as soon as you go over into Missouri, and every day there are 2 buses coming up from Mexico through Texas carrying Muslim immigrants. And they're taking them north. So Muslims are coming in all kinds of ways. One last thing I wanted to share. I was in Vancouver, Canada last summer, and we drove out to a town called Abbotsford. Has anyone heard of Abbotsford? Abbotsford is right on the border with Linden, Washington State. And it's so close that my American cell phone picks up calls in Canada. Otherwise you can't pick up American phone calls unless you have a special package. And it was in the summer, so 9 o'clock, we were driving back to Vancouver, and it was still light. And he says, "You see that blue house over there?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "That's the United States." I said, "Wow, that's so close. I don't see any fence." "No, there is no fence." Then he said, "You see the White House between the blue house and where we are? That's in Canada." I said, "Wow." you know, I think I'm a terrorist. So if I were a terrorist, I'd buy both houses and dig a tunnel. You see, yeah, that's what they did. That's why I'm showing it to you. He said there are hundreds of tunnels under the border between Canada and the U.S., and only now they're beginning to pay attention to it and stop it. But I have a Christian lady in Maine, and I forgot the name of the river. It's a very shallow river between Canada and the state of Maine. You just walk right across the river. It's so shallow. And the Muslims are walking across all the time. See, there are places on the Canadian-American border that it is your responsibility to report to the local border patrol to say that I just crossed the border on foot. Yeah, like, yeah, really. You know. Okay, anyway, so America, I don't want to say to you, you know, go with the Saudis, but your government has decided to go with the Saudis, otherwise you will have 9/11 attacks. Now, you may have 9/11 attacks anyway, because the revolutionary Muslims are working at cross purposes with the evolutionary Muslims. They think that they're traitors and heretics and they also need to be killed. So I'm just saying that's the nature of the beast. You have an Islamic enemy that has a peaceful way to take over America, which is what your government is working with and making a lot of money from this. And then you have the revolutionaries who just want to destroy everything. So will there be an attack in America soon? I would really not think so. But Europe is so ripe for the picking by these Muslim terrorists. And so you will see more attacks. One last thing I want to say with your permission, with your indulgence.
We've got to close here.
I know, one last thing. When the boats leave Libya on their way to Italy, and thousands and thousands of refugees, the Italian Navy picks them up. So what does ISIS say? These stupid Italians, you know, they're picking up our vanguard troops. We have 4,000 vanguard troops in Europe, and we're going to take the Vatican, we're going to kill the Pope, we're going to take Rome. And that, they say what they're going to do. Listen to them. Don't be politically correct.
Thank you, sir.
Before you leave, we've got a couple things. One is that the temporary board of directors' time is coming up.
You don't mind if I
Be out of it shortly. We need people to volunteer to be on the board of directors. Permanent, please put your name in. Give it to Jim. We need them, otherwise you'll be killed. Several of us here that are on the temporary board of directors, we're going to be on the side.
Love you, buddy.